Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you to ITU also for inviting me and give me this chance to present you some European activities in the field of ICT for the environment. I will be quick on reminding the European policy context, only 2 slides. Then I will zoom in on who we are, what are our programs and instruments, what are our scope for activities, visions and projects, and conclude with a specific focus on ICT for monitoring climate change, which is the topic of this session. So, the policy context, well, this slide has been already presented by my colleague in the previous session. We have this integrate climate and energy policy and the 2020 objectives of reducing by 20% our greenhouse gases emissions, or objective of having 20% of renewable energy in the energy share in Europe, and also the objective of saving 20% of energy consumption in Europe. I'd like to add another slide to complete this policy context in relation to climate change. In June 2007, our Environment Commissioner, Mr. Stavros Dimas, insisted on the fact that we need to fight the battle of climate change on 2 fronts. And reducing greenhouse gas emissions is one, of course, of these 2 fronts. But the other one is to adapt to climate change, because climate change is there, and we have to minimize the impacts of climate change on people, the economy, and the environment. So from there, I come to who we are, and in DG, in the Directorate General to which I belong, Information, Society and Media, we are, of course, very much interested into ICT development, ICT applications, ICT deployment. And our unit is called ICT for Sustainable Growth, which is very much in line with this conference. Indeed, we would like to boost growth, but in the same time try to reduce as much as possible the ecological footprint of our activities. And for the time being, we have 3 main pillars of activities. The first one is ICT for environmental management. And this is basically about setting up a digital infrastructure in Europe that will support environmental services in Europe. So it's a kind of back-end systems in Europe to support services. The second topic is ICT for disaster and risk management. Indeed, this second topic relies on the first one. You need these back-end systems to be in place, but there is a much stronger focus on real-time dimension. You are constrained by real-time decisions. You have to cope with very quick data flows. You have to come with the right decisions in a very short time of frame. And therefore, telecommunications aspects and wireless telecommunications, for instance, are very important in this second pillar. The first one is about ICT for energy efficiency. This has been already mentioned in the previous session. So I think with these 3 pillars, we are addressing both the mitigation of climate change and the abatement of emissions, how being more efficient with natural resources management, and also adaptation to climate change. We have several tools, instruments, and programs to work on these fields. I will be short on this. I welcome any question later on in a bilateral context if you want. We have a political framework which we call I-2010, which defines basically the main activities we would like to do to support, develop, and deploy ICT in Europe. We have the FP7 framework program for research and technological development, and the aim there is really to create new knowledge, new ICT knowledge. And then we have a new instrument, which is the ICT policy support program. And there the idea is really to use the prototypes developed from the research world and try to deploy those prototypes across member states. So this is much more about innovation. And we believe we need a mixture of these various instruments to make a difference. Now let's zoom in into the activity of ICT for environmental sustainability. So the first pillar I showed you. We have a vision of ICT contributing to a cleaner, safer, and healthier environment. Therefore, we have to target unsustainable trends in Europe. And just to mention a few of them, we observe more and more degraded environment, and we see also higher exposure to pollutants and to more frequent and sometimes severe disasters. And this is in relation to climate change. So we aim at having a European capacity to master and predict, manage the environment and its resources. And we call that a single information space for the environment in Europe. I will come back to this later on. I'm going to skip this one. Let's come to the strategy and the main items for research that we have earmarked. The first one is about monitoring, smart monitoring. More and more, and this is true for climate change, we need to cope with many different types of data. And we have to manage networks of very different sensors, being on mobile or fixed platforms, being wired or wireless, being active or passive. And one topic we would like to address, and we are currently addressing already, is the smart management and dynamic management of heterogeneous sensor networks. The second topic is the following. We would like also to work on dynamic data flow. So one thing is to acquire the data in a smart way, but then we have to fuse those data. We have to assimilate those data into models. And the results of models have to feed decision support tools. So we have there different topics where ICT plays a central role. Going further, we would like to work on web services. We believe that the time with central data repositories and like black boxes of softwares that you own and you have in your own office has gone. Now we go for more and more decentralized, distributed information resources for the environment, which are accessible, or which should be more accessible on the web. So we would like also to use the ICT research program to improve our capacity to chain services on the web, meaning accessing databases, but also processing data, visualizing data, and so on. So this is much more than an access to data or a search of HTML pages. It's much more. This includes also the remote access to computing facilities and the creation of services. So we can put all these strategic and research items under a concept which we call SEAS. It stands for a single information space in Europe for the environment. And the main aim is to have a collaboration through web technologies and have therefore a kind of information space for the environment. On the right side, you can see this picture of the internet at a very coarse grain, and you see all these nodes interacting with each other. And this is a kind of illustration of this information space. So resources that are communication aware and interoperability, technical interoperability, which allows this exchange and this chaining of services. For the time being, we have different activities ongoing. We focused on ICT activities for disaster management. And the issue was really to see how ICT can improve each of the phases of the disaster management cycle, starting with the prevention and the mitigation, but going through better preparedness, early warning, alert, and better response on the field. We have currently several projects that we can cluster in this way. We have projects related to information systems and delivering open generic systems architecture, supporting environmental management. We have the cluster on smart monitoring systems, but also command and control systems and research for public safety telecommunication. We would like to feed the outcome of these research projects into major environmental initiatives and international initiatives, and I'd like to mention 3 of them. The INSPIRE directive, which is there to establish a spatial information infrastructure in Europe. The GMES initiative, which is more space-driven, but which also aims at using Earth observation data to monitor the environment. And the GEO initiative, which aims at building a system of systems across countries all over the globe to share environmental information. So in conclusions, I have 4 conclusions. If we want to monitor climate change, we need to undergo multi-source data integration, and there is a strong role for ICT there. We need to exploit new trends towards cheaper and higher computing power and data storage, and this is true for distributed resources, distributed computing, and also for tackling 3D and 4D dimensions of climate change. We need to exploit the advent of web services. And if we want to mitigate the impact of climate change, we also require to address the real-time challenge. So, of course, we need very long historical data in order to test our models, but we need also to address the real-time challenge. Thank you for your attention.